KK, let's look at the signal. Many people tend to mix up social listening and audience intelligence. That's because both are about understanding users, both look at social platforms, and both can produce what we call insights. But if you're actually working on branding, content, media buying, or market research, you'll realize that these two are not even on the same level. The simplest way to think about it is this. Social listening answers the question, what are people saying? Audience intelligence answers the question, who are these people really? Those two questions may sound similar, but the data logic behind them, the way they're used, and the decisions they support are completely different. Let's start with social listening. At its core, social listening is about tracking public conversations. You look at whether a brand is being mentioned, whether a topic is gaining momentum, whether user sentiment is positive or negative, whether a competitor has recently triggered controversy, or which keywords keep showing up around a trending topic. So social listening is more like an external radar system. It helps you capture conversations, detect trends, monitor sentiment and public opinion, and quickly understand what the market is talking about right now. For example, if you're a skincare brand, social listening can tell you that conversations around sensitive skin repair are increasing, that the words most associated with a competitor are things like ingredient conscious, irritating, or redness, that a creator's video has sparked a new concept, or that sentiment in the comments became sharply polarized after a collaboration launch. All of that is useful, because it tells you what appears to be happening on the surface of the market, but that's also where the limitation begins. Just because you know people are talking doesn't mean you know who is actually talking. Just because a topic is trending doesn't mean you know which audience cares most about it. And just because sentiment is getting worse doesn't mean you know whether those people overlap with your core buyers. That is the boundary of social listening. Now let's move to audience intelligence. Audience intelligence focuses not just on the conversation itself, but on the structure of the people behind it. It tries to answer questions like, what interests do these people share? Which accounts do they follow? Which communities do they overlap with? What type of consumers are they most similar to? What other kinds of content, brands, or topics are they likely to respond to? So, audience intelligence is not just about content. It is about audience profiles and audience relationships. Let's use the skincare example again. If social listening tells you that the topic of sensitive skin repair is gaining traction, audience intelligence can take that one step further and tell you that the people discussing this topic are not only interested in skincare, but are also highly engaged with parenting, allergy management, sleep, and gentle wellness. That they overlap with ingredient-focused consumers, but have much less overlap with more advanced medical aesthetic users. And that the people they trust are not necessarily major beauty influencers, but more lifestyle creators, health educators, and authentic reviewers. At that point, what you gain is no longer just a hot keyword. You gain a group of people who can actually be understood, segmented, and reached. So if we have to break down the difference, I think there are 5 key points. First, the object of analysis is different. Social listening looks at conversations. Audience intelligence looks at people. Second, the depth of insight is different. Social listening is better at identifying surface-level signals, such as heat, sentiment, keywords, and shifts in volume. Audience intelligence is better at uncovering deeper structures, such as interest patterns, community affiliation, audience overlap, and consumer tendencies. Third, the use cases are different. If you're doing sentiment monitoring, trend tracking, competitor alerts, or campaign reviews, social listening is extremely useful. If you're working on brand positioning, audience segmentation, content strategy, creator strategy, or market entry decisions, audience intelligence becomes more important. Fourth, the outputs are different. Social listening typically gives you answers like which topics are rising, which emotions are changing, and which brands are getting mentioned the most. Audience intelligence, on the other hand, tells you which audience groups are worth targeting, who your core audience really is, who they resemble, and what is most likely to influence them. Fifth, the decision-making value is different. Social listening helps you see what is happening right now. Audience intelligence helps you decide what to do next. So in a way, social listening is better at discovering problems. Audience intelligence is better at understanding them. One tells you the direction of the wind has changed. The other tells you where that wind is coming from and who it will affect. So does that mean audience intelligence is somehow more advanced and that social listening is no longer enough? Not exactly. The most mature brands usually don't choose one over the other. They use both together. Because in many cases, the most effective process looks like this. First, use social listening to identify the topics, tensions, and signals gaining momentum in the market. Then use audience intelligence to understand exactly which groups are driving those conversations and whether they overlap with your target consumers. And finally, decide how your content, media strategy, creator partnerships, and product messaging should respond. In other words, social listening is responsible for discovering the conversation. Audience intelligence is responsible for identifying the audience. One keeps you from being slow to react. The other keeps you from shooting blindly. If you rely only on social listening, you may end up chasing trends without knowing whether you're chasing the right people. If you rely only on audience profiles, you may understand the people but miss what is actually changing in the market in real time. The most effective approach is to connect those two layers: what the market is saying and who exactly is saying it. So here's the final takeaway. Social listening is not audience intelligence, and audience intelligence is not social listening. One looks at the conversation, the other looks at the people. One helps you monitor the market, the other helps you understand the audience. And if your goal is smarter content, more accurate targeting, and stronger long-term brand strategy, the best approach is to use both together. Don't forget to like and subscribe!